January 332 BCE, Tyre, Phoenicia. Picture this. You're standing on the coast. In front of you, a city sitting nearly 1 kilometer offshore. No land connection, only open sea. Its walls rise over 40 meters straight out of the water. For centuries, no army has ever taken it. This is Tyre. To the Tyrians, their city is invincible, built for naval defense and unreachable from land. But one man intends to prove them wrong. Alexander the Great. He leads 30,000 soldiers, but he has no fleet at all, and he cannot simply bypass this city and move forward with his campaign. Because as long as Tyre stands, Persian naval power survives. By every rule of ancient warfare, this should be the end of his offensive. An island fortress, protected by the Mediterranean, defended by tens of thousands and a powerful navy. Now watch what happens. After more than 6 months of siege, Tyre will fall. A stone causeway will be built from the mainland out to the island. 50-meter siege towers will roll forward across the sea. Alexander will command one of the largest fleets in the Mediterranean. A city that believed itself unreachable will be taken by force. This is the Siege of Tyre, where Alexander proves that no city is unreachable for him. If this is the kind of history you enjoy, consider subscribing. To understand why this city mattered so much, you need to see where the war stood when Alexander reached it. After Issus in 333 BCE, Alexander did not pause to celebrate. While Darius regrouped inland after his defeat, Alexander turned south, toward Phoenicia, to remove the last obstacle between his army and the Mediterranean. 2 major cities lay ahead of him. Both chose submission. Byblos surrendered without resistance. Sidon opened its gates and welcomed him as a liberator. The coast was opening. But one city did not follow. Tyre, an island city that did not fear armies, because armies could not reach it. And Alexander was now standing on its shore. Tyre was not dangerous because of its walls alone. It was dangerous because of what it controlled. This was where the Persian navy still gathered, where damaged ships were repaired, where crews were trained, supplied, and sheltered. It was the most powerful naval base in the eastern Mediterranean. As long as Tyre stood, Persia still had a foothold on the sea. That meant Persian ships could still raid, still disrupt supplies, still threaten Greece while Alexander marched east. Alexander did not attack Tyre for glory. He attacked it because the entire invasion depended on what happened here, and Tyre understood that. Spring, 332 BCE. Alexander did not begin with threats. Calling for a final chance to surrender, he sent envoys requesting permission to enter Tyre and sacrifice to Melkart, the city's chief god, whom Greeks identified with Heracles. It was a religious act, but it carried political meaning. To grant it was to recognize Alexander as king of Asia. Tyre refused. Then they went further. Alexander's envoys were seized, executed, and their bodies thrown from the walls into the sea. This wasn't negotiation anymore, it was defiance. Alexander swore the city would fall, a promise almost no one believed. Alexander faced a problem no commander had ever solved. He could not scale walls rising straight from the sea. He could not starve the city from inland, because supplies still reached Tyre by water. And he had no fleet large enough to challenge its navy directly. So he chose an answer that defied every rule of siege warfare. He decided to bring the land to the city. Centuries earlier, Tyre had not been an island at all. Its original settlement, Old Tyre, had stood on the mainland before the city rose to dominate the sea. Those ruins still lay along the shore, abandoned, forgotten. Alexander ordered them torn apart. Stone by stone, the remnants of Old Tyre were dismantled, quarried, shaped, and dragged into the water. What emerged was not a road, it was a bridge. A causeway built from the rubble of Tyre's own history, stretching out into the water. Men worked from dawn to dusk. And as the causeway advanced, it entered Tyre's killing range. Construction turned into combat. Arrows fell from the walls. Alexander ordered siege towers raised and catapults built to be placed at the head of the causeway. As the stone advanced, the machines advanced with it, bringing the walls within reach. Macedonian catapults thundered from the head of the causeway. Behind the towers, men found cover from the rain of missiles. Ships closed in to rake the workers. Every stone laid pushed the army farther forward and made abandoning the effort more costly than continuing it. Alexander understood that. Once the causeway began, the siege could only end one way. Either Tyre would fall, or his army would bleed itself against the sea. As the causeway reached deeper water, Tyre committed to a decisive strike. A fire ship, packed with pitch and timber, was set alight and driven into the siege towers. Flames climbed the wooden frames, towers collapsed into the sea. Months of labor vanished in minutes. Morale broke. The siege stalled. Alexander now understood the truth. This would not be a quick conquest. This would be a war of exhaustion, and it had only just begun. The fire ship revealed a hard reality. Tyre will not fall by land alone. As long as the city controls the sea, it can be supplied, reinforced, and defended indefinitely. Without naval power, the siege will fail. So he turns to the cities that have already submitted to him and begins gathering a fleet. Sidon provides experienced crews. Byblos places its war galleys at Alexander's disposal. With these additions, Alexander commands approximately 80 vessels, sufficient to contest Tyre's fleet, but not yet to dominate it. Then the kings of Cyprus, observing the shifting balance of power after Issus, withdraw their support from Persia and align themselves with Alexander. They bring 120 warships into his service. Within weeks, his fleet exceeds 200 vessels, establishing clear naval superiority in the region. What began as a land siege now extends to the sea. Alexander deploys his fleet to seal both harbors, establishing a formal blockade. The Tyrians respond with calculated sorties, attempting to disrupt siege operations and prevent the tightening of the encirclement. Engagements follow in confined waters. Warships maneuver for position. Rams are brought to bear. Missiles are exchanged at close range. Ships grind hull against hull as oars splinter. Boarding parties leap across the narrowing gap, fighting hand-to-hand on the decks. Gradually, control of the surrounding waters passes to the Macedonian fleet. Alexander anchors vessels near the walls and positions naval engines to support the assault. When Tyrian divers cut anchor cables, he replaces rope with chain. The ports are contained, and from that point forward, Tyre stood alone. With naval superiority secured, the siege changes character. The causeway is rebuilt, wider, stronger, reinforced after the fire ship's destruction. Alexander masses artillery at the head of the causeway. Catapults and stone throwers bombard the battlements, forcing defenders to withdraw from exposed positions. Siege towers rolled forward, but each advance met fierce resistance. The Tyrians held the walls, and the mole gained no decisive ground. At sea, the blockade holds firm. Phoenician ships seal the southern harbor. Ships from Cyprus contain the northern one. Inside the walls, the pressure builds. Then the defenders adapt. They construct secondary wooden towers along the parapets. Fire arrows streak toward the assault ships. Alexander responds. Assault vessels are refitted with battering rams, and at the southern wall, the rams begin their work. Again and again, iron strikes stone. Alexander is no longer testing the entire perimeter. He is narrowing the pressure, searching for weakness. Alexander shifts the weight of the siege to the southern wall. More rams mounted on assault ships are brought forward under covering fire. For days, the impact continues. Then a section gives way, a crack, then a breach. Alexander does not hesitate. Assault vessels surge forward. Boarding bridges drop across the broken masonry. Alexander leads from the front, advancing with the hypaspists through the breach. The fighting is immediate, confined, brutal. Tyrian defenders refuse to yield the breach, but they are overwhelmed as more Macedonian troops force their way through. At the same time, Phoenician and Cypriot triremes force entry into the harbors, preventing reinforcement of the breach. The southern wall fell, and now the city is open. But the fighting did not end with the breach. It spread, house to house, street to street, rooftop to rooftop. Tyre paid for its defiance. Thousands were killed. Thousands more were sold into slavery. Along the shoreline, 2,000 defenders were crucified. But not everyone died. Those who surrendered early lived. Sidonian citizens were spared. submission still mattered. Tyre learned the cost of resistance, and the Mediterranean learned a new lesson. No city was unreachable for Alexander. With Tyre destroyed, the coast was secure. Alexander marched south. Gaza resisted. Then it was erased. Egypt opened its gates. Alexander was crowned pharaoh. The sea now belonged to him. His supply lines were safe. His rear was secure. But the war was far from over. Darius was still alive. The Persian Empire still stood. And now, with the coast lost, the empire gathered everything it had left. An army drawn from across Asia, hundreds of thousands of men, cavalry, infantry, chariots, the full weight of an empire, assembled on open ground, where Alexander defied every rule of ancient warfare and faced the full weight of an empire. Watch the Battle of Gaugamela now.